Welcome back to the MyLatinLife podcast. Since 2014, MyLatinLife has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Our guest today is Christopher Hill from Hands Up Holidays and Impact Destinations. He's a travel entrepreneur, and we're happy to have Chris on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks, Vance. It's fantastic to be here.
Thanks for being with us. You have a really interesting background story. You started in investment banking in London and went on to found these travel brands, and they're approaching travel in a unique way, where there's an angle on giving back and sustainability. And we'll get into it in the episode, but maybe you could take us back and take us through your journey a little bit.
Yeah, sure. The journey really began, I would say it began straight after college, where I was all set to become a lawyer. I had worked at a law firm over the summer, and they'd asked me, offered me a job, which I accepted, and also got them to agree that I could travel for about 9 months before starting working for them. And my thinking at that point was that I would get travel out of my system and then settle down and become a lawyer. And however, one significant thing that intervened was in that final year of college, after I accepted with the law firm, I won a scholarship from a British investment bank. And that ended up in me getting a job in London with them. And I ended up working in London in investment banking instead of becoming a lawyer. And I lived in London for 6 years. And in my 6 years, so this is 2002, I took a trip to South Africa. And on that trip, in addition to going on safari and exploring the wonders of Cape Town and the garden route and wonderful places like that, I also helped to build a house for a family in one of the township slum areas just outside of Cape Town. And this experience, it changed my life, and it added 2 extra dimensions to travel that I hadn't previously experienced. As I mentioned, I did that travel for 9 months and quite a lot of travel even after that. But so those 2 extra dimensions were, one, I actually got to interact with the local people and do a deep dive into the culture and hear their stories and gain insights into their lives. And that was really wonderful. And then secondly, I actually felt great to make a difference in the lives of the family that we were helping alongside to build. And so I got thinking, well, I've learned some good business skills. Why don't I put those skills into something I'd find a bit more meaningful and fulfilling and make it easy for others to have similar experiences to what I just had in South Africa. And so that was really the birthing of what became Hands Up Holidays a few years later.
And explain for the people what exactly Hands Up Holidays is.
Yeah, it's a customized vacation that is a combination of sightseeing, luxury, and giving back. And so, for example, say on a trip to Costa Rica, guests can stay at wonderful eco-luxury hotels such as Nayara Tented Camp in Arenal, and do fantastic activities that they would normally do on a vacation there. So whitewater rafting, zip lining, nature walks, wildlife safaris, all those sort of things. And then overlay that with a few days at a wildlife rescue center, for example, where they can help with the rehabilitation of rescued parrots and monkeys and other animals that were there at that time. And so that involves preparing their meals, maintaining their enclosures, creating enrichments to stimulate the animals, and then assisting the vet as he does his daily rounds, and really just learning an enormous amount about the animals. And that can be complemented as well. We have some great renovation projects at some schools in that area. And then you can finish that up with, say, heading down to Manuel Antonio and stay at another eco-luxury property, Arenas del Mar, where as I say, finish up with some beach time, some snorkeling, surfing. As I say, it's all tailor-made for you. So depending on what you're interested in, and perhaps also some wildlife spotting in Manuel Antonio National Park.
Okay, cool. So you kind of customize it based on what the family or the client is looking for?
Yeah, yeah. So most of our inquiries that we get come through our website, through our Plan My Trip page. And on that page is a form that our potential clients fill out, which sets out things like, the destinations of interest, the time of year, length of trip, the ways they'd like to help, and also the sightseeing activities that they're interested in. I've touched on a few of those, and that's really a tick the box exercise. So it might be chocolate making, or it might be coffee tasting, rum tasting, or as I say, whitewater rafting, meeting prominent locals, market visits, all those sort of things. And then so they all come through to me, and I'll take a look and then start out on preparing a customized itinerary for them.
That's really cool. And I see on your website that there's a lot of countries. You're doing everything. It's Africa, Asia, Pacific, Latin America. You're running trips in all these different places?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. When I first launched, I mentioned that I got the idea back in 2002, and really I actually the next year, 2003, I took out and did some more study. But then 2004 and 5, I spent traveling the world and building relationships with different communities around the world. And yeah, so yeah, Asia, Africa, Latin America primarily. And we've just been growing it since there.
Wow. And where is like the focus for you, or what are you most excited about?
Well, most of our clients are American, and for a good number, this sort of thing is their first time traveling into somewhat more exotic destinations, and so primarily the closer to home is our main area. So Central South America are our most popular destination. So Costa Rica, Belize, Guatemala, Peru, Argentina.
Wow, Chris, I didn't know this. So you're saying that Central and South America are your most popular, is your most popular region these days?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Wow, that's great. Because the website, it's like a lot of like, safari and all that stuff. And I just kind of figured, but no, that's really interesting. Let's double click on Latin America then. I guess what are you kind of seeing there in terms of the interest in the places that you're going back to?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. This a lot of diversity in that region on its own, let alone the overlaying that with the volunteering components. But um, you know, you know as well as I do what those sort of attractions are in terms of diversity. So focusing on the volunteering, well, I've mentioned the wildlife conservation in Costa Rica, which is very popular. Another really popular project is in Belize, which is installing eco-friendly stoves in traditional huts. And the beauty of these stoves is that For one thing, that can be completed in just 2 or 3 days from start to finish. So guests can get that sense of satisfaction of seeing it right from start to finish. But then also the stoves, they replace open flames that are in traditional huts. And particularly with young kids running around, there's risk of getting burnt. And so by having an enclosed stove, you reduce those risks. And then all the stoves have a chimney as well to expel the smoke. And so respiratory problems such as asthma are dramatically reduced. And then thirdly, from an environmental perspective, they're a win because they're much more energy efficient. Uh, and so that's another really popular project. In Guatemala, we focus on house building, which, as I say, is one of our more popular ones. Also, we're just launched with Roatan in Honduras, and that is offering being a reading partner in a literacy after school literacy programs there.
Hmm.
And then in Argentina is one of my favorites, and that is installing or building solar heating panels using recycled bottles and cans just outside of Buenos Aires. And so, yeah, that's another favorite. So, yeah, as I say, quite a lot of a range of options on the volunteering side in Central South America.
So walk me through what a trip with you guys would look like. Are you picking them up at the airport? Are you organizing their hotel? And so just kind of walk me through everything.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, in 99% of our trips, it is you're taken care of from the moment you get off the plane to the moment you get back on the plane. So everything you've described, the transfers, the hotels, the activities, the the restaurants, are all arranged by us.
And what do you think are some of the most important details in a trip? For us, like even me in my Latin life, I'm thinking about organizing more trips and doing more stuff in this direction. So I am curious about it. What makes a good trip? What are some of the important details or epiphanies that you've had about running these trips?
I would say it's probably one aspect is to have a good idea of what you want to get out of the trip in advance, and that can be, well, first and foremost from our perspective is on that volunteering side. So being clear on how you want to help, and and then what that would look like, and then supplementing that with having a good handle on what that destination offers you for your leisure time, and then having a sense within yourself or within your family unit or whatever the case may be of your, what's the right word, your, um, for lack of a better word, temperament, um, or sort of energy levels. So what I mean by that is whether or not you want to have something planned all the time, or whether or not you're the sort of person who, yes, likes to have some things rearranged, prearranged, but then also likes to have a bit of downtime. So just having that awareness up front can really help with crafting that perfect itinerary for you or your family, or you and your partner, whatever the case may be.
Mhm. And I understand your trips are pretty friendly, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, absolutely. When I first launched the Hands Up Holidays back in 2006, I had young professionals in mind, sort of 25 to 35-year-olds, cash rich, time poor, people who wanted to have a great vacation and also to make a difference. But really, right from the outset, we were getting bookings from families, and families weren't on my radar at all when I was setting it up. I didn't have kids of my own at the time, and it just didn't occur to me that families would want to be booking with us. And so I'd ask these families, why are you booking with us? And they'd say things like, our kids come from pretty privileged backgrounds, and we want them to appreciate how fortunate they are. Or they'd say, we're looking for a good family bonding experience on our vacation, and this nails it for us. And that really resonated with me. And even more so now that I do have kids of my own. And so within a fairly short space of time, we shifted our focus from that young professionals audience to families. And that's certainly not to exclude any other group, but certainly primarily these days, our main clients are families.
And so, how do you think about with a family addressing each individual's needs? Because everybody in a family needs something different, right? Like the mother, the father, the son, the daughter, they all have different expectations going into, a big family trip. And they each have their own sort of growth curve or learning curve or things like that, or buy-in in general to what you're doing. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, well, it's certainly true. And so we encourage our clients. Our primary interaction is what with one of the parents. Typically, it's the mother, but we encourage them to have those discussions with the wider family to understand what each member would like to get out of the trip, and then it's a case of trying to strike a balance, and ideally finding those experiences that everyone wants to do. But even if that's not possible, um, finding an experience, at least one experience for each person in that family unit that is their preference, and then melding those together and creating that itinerary. And then in the context of the volunteering component, which is the obvious primary driver for why people are traveling with us, um, the family component really comes into the to the fore in that context as well. And so as a sort of rough rules of thumb that we use, we tend to say that from about the age of 5, children can get involved in our wildlife conservation projects, like the one I mentioned in Costa Rica, uh, preparing the meals, helping maintain the enclosures, and so on. And and that runs well. If they're animal lovers, they can continue being involved at any age. But we also, when there are teenage kids involved, we love to encourage them to get involved in our building type projects, because that's where to my mind anyway, the real magic happens around that interaction and engagement that I mentioned happened to me back in South Africa. Um, and also that the family bonding is even stronger when families are helping together to, for example, to build a house.
100%. And I had a question for you, which is you kind of have two brands, right? You have impact
Mm,
destinations and you have hands up holidays. What's the idea behind differentiating the brands?
yeah, great question. The idea behind it is that they're conceptually similar but different, um, and targeting different audiences as well. And so the conceptual difference is that, as we've described with Hands Up Holidays, you are still rolling up your sleeves for a portion of the trip and physically getting involved. That might be at a wildlife rescue center, or it might be, um, as I say, building a house. The idea behind impact destinations is that it's a traveler's philanthropic donation, which is used by the experts to enable them to do what they do best in the destination, but at the same time will unlock a unique experience for the traveler. And so an example of that is in Chile, where we offer the opportunity for guests to make a donation to a puma conservation fund, and so thus enable the expert conservationists to further do their great work. And then what that unlocks for them is the opportunity in the Torres del Paine region to go and track puma in the wild with expert guides.
Wow. Give me some examples of some of the trips you've run. You gave it a few, but give me more. Give me some stories. I want to feel it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll speak from. I'll give one or two stories from my own experiences, and then share some client stories. Um, Continuing in the uh, broadly speaking Latin American context, we did a trip with my family to Mexico earlier this year, and we did a road trip in Baja California, right from north to south, and so that involved incredible scenery, uh, amazing wildlife encounters from the whale watching in Cabo to swimming with whale sharks to um, dolphins and sea lion encounters as well. But also we spent some time in Todos Santos doing a turtle conservation project there, which involved us essentially doing beach patrol, looking certainly during the daytime beach patrol, monitoring the turtle nests for any new hatchlings, and gathering any that did hatch during the daytime and putting them into a special uh, hole in the sand where we kept them hydrated, and then in the evening participating in releasing the turtles into the sea and helping uh, increase their chances of survival by doing it at night time. Um, and so that was very special for my. So I did it with my whole family. So my two boys out there doing the beach patrols, seeing the joy in their faces with seeing newly hatched turtles, and then also the wonderful moments of releasing them and watching these nature's instincts kick in, that they once placed in the sand know exactly where to go in terms of heading to the beach, and out to sea, and seeing them off on their adventure, and learning about the turtle behavior around things like the female turtles always return to the beach that they were born at, even 20 years later. So yes, seeing their uh, look of wonder when in discovering those sort of things about turtles. Another trip we've taken with them was to Bali, Indonesia, where we got involved with building a disabled accessible bathroom for a paraplegic. And the beauty of this particular project is that whilst it's focused on just one person, the impact on that individual is so profound. And to give you the context for it, Bali being a Hindu island means that if you're born with a disability, it can be considered bad karma. And if it's something like paraplegia, you can be hidden away from society and lead very lonely, isolated lives. And so to be able to bring a measure of dignity and independence in an area so personal, such as going to the bathroom, is profound. And so it was great to be able to get involved with that with my kids. They participated in drawing the water from the village well, taking that water over to where the cement was being mixed, and then they would get involved with the hand mixing of the cement, and then loading that cement into a wheelbarrow, and then carrying it over to where the experts were doing the tricky parts. And also getting to play with the local kids is an important part of the experience for them, getting that interaction and engagement with the locals. Uh, so yeah, those are a couple of stories from from my own life, and then maybe a quick couple of stories to share from clients.
Yeah,
Uh,
please.
yeah, one that springs to mind would be a family that traveled with us to Morocco, where they were helping to build a library at a school about 45 minutes outside of Marrakesh, and their kids range in ages, and so the youngest ones weren't so involved in the building. They were more focused on playing and interacting with the locals, which is great. And yeah, the trip went great. And I didn't think, didn't dwell on that trip. It wasn't out of the ordinary until I heard from them a few months later, and then they were saying that their that Christmas time had come, and they said that their children didn't want their their Christmas gifts. They wanted their gifts to be sent to the children that they were interacting with in Morocco, and that really touched me, and spoke to how the impact on that we were making in not only in Morocco but in that family. And then another quick story I'd share would be with a client of ours who was quite she a solo traveler, and she'd retired and hadn't traveled very much at all, and so it was what I would say is it was a bit of a sort of nervous traveler. Certainly hadn't been to Africa before, and chose to go to Kenya with us, and so needed a bit of hand holding, bit of sort of extra hand holding. That's totally fine. And again, had a awesome time, but that's what we expect. But so the reason it was noteworthy was that she then after the trip said, "Oh well, I'm actually booked to fly back to Kenya," and she had arranged her own. She'd rented her own apartment and rented a car, and had gone to spend the next 3 months in Kenya just on her own. And so she'd just gone straight back to the community that we had facilitated her to help at. But she decided to spend 3 months there, and so to see the transformation in her was quite remarkable.
That is incredible. And it's really cool how you're combining the luxury component while combining these life changing adventures and having families, be able to have these really unique experiences together and to grow. How did you kind of navigate putting the angle on it that you do? I hate to even call it an angle, but where you're focusing on sustainability and philanthropy. How did you know that you wanted to maintain that philanthropic angle to it?
Yeah, well, I think for me it was on that trip in South Africa. How it all came about was that my roommate, when I first moved to London, ended up moving down to South Africa, and over a period of time ended up becoming a tour guide down there. And he invited me down on the trip with him and his wife, and we were brainstorming some ideas of what I could do in the travel space, start something up. And I wanted it to be unique. And so, to have some sort of unique selling proposition, a way of differentiating ourselves from all the other ways that you can travel. And this idea occurred to me of combining sightseeing with giving back. And it was really fortunate that I shared this idea with him, and he said, "Well, I've got a friend who runs Habitat for Humanity in Cape Town, and do you want me to see if there's a build happening when we're back there?" And as luck or providence would have it, there was such a build happening, and so I was able to participate in it and have that transformational experience. So that um, very much vindicated the idea that I had for doing it. And so, but it was really driven out of, um, as I say, wanting to do something unique, to set ourselves apart. And so by framing it that way, in terms of a combination of sightseeing and volunteering, it became immediately apparent that the volunteering component wasn't going to be months long. And so how can we make it impactful? And so the obvious way was to focus on philanthropy. And so it's the funds that our clients bring, which is the real impact, the real benefit to the community. I.e., without those funds, the house wouldn't be built, or the stove wouldn't be built, or whatever the case may be. And so that was the driver, for bringing in the philanthropic component, was to make it still, to find a way that even if you're there for a few days on the volunteering side, it can be of positive impact. And yes, so that was the driver for that. And the sustainability part, actually, it comes from, I I in that in the year 2003, I took a year out and did some more study, and that was studying theology. And part of that course, I took a paper on caring for creation, and so that's was really laid the foundation for me around that anything we do, we are stewards of this beautiful planet. And so that was a key lens that I looked through when I was setting this up, was how can everything be done in a way that does, uh, do good stewardship of the world.
So, Chris, as we get to wrapping up the episode, what final message would you want to share with the audience? What advice would you have for people, or what do you think you really want to get out there?
I would say that I want to get out there that travel can be a force for good, and you can start small. You can, even give even 1 or 2 days out of your vacation and devote that to making an impact, and it can genuinely be of positive impact and make a difference. And as I say, dip your toes in the water that way, and see where it takes you.
Cool. I love it. So we're gonna have a link in the description to your website, maybe your LinkedIn, whatever you think's best. But you tell the people where they can find you.
Thanks, Vance. The best is through the websites. Any inquiry that comes through, I personally look after. So go to handsupholidays.com or impactdestinations.com.
Okay, and if they mention My Latin Life, we'll treat them really nice.
Or better than nice, even give a discount, 10% discount for MyLatinLife listeners.
Okay, perfect. This was not coordinated beforehand, but yeah, of course. Mention My Latin Life, you'll be treated very well when it comes to Hands Up Holidays. I think what you're doing is really unique. You know, it takes a very wide-ranging skill set to be able to run these trips, especially the people that are, interacting with the families and organizing everything. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot of work, and you really got to have a lot of different skill sets to pull it off. So hats off to you.
Thanks so much, Vance.
Great. So we'll wrap it up there. This has been another episode of the MyLatinLife podcast. Again, our guest today, Mr. Christopher Hill, Chris Hill from Hands Up Holidays, Impact Destinations. And for the audience, please subscribe to the podcast, follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. And we'll see you in the next episode. Ciao for now.